Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So in this video we'll be talking about a game with NiceChessD, right? So let's go over it. I think this was an interesting game that ended somewhat short because things happened. So let's get into it. D4, knight f6, c4, e6. So I'm playing the queen's pawn opening. And what black is doing is playing the Nimzo Indian, right? So the goal is to get this bishop out, to castle, and then play either c5 or d5 or something like that, right? Knight c3, bishop b4, queen c2, and now c5. And this is a pretty common move. Some other moves that can be played here include d5, castles, forgot. Knight c6 is a common one. But yeah, there are so many common moves here. And our friend NiceChessD picks c5. Now I take, bishop takes. Another move here is the move knight to a6. And then there is a3, bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes, b4, knight to e4, and then queen to d4 could work, queen to b2 could work, but queen to b2 is what I remember, and then white basically pushes these pawns, gets the bishop out, gets the knight out, and because of the bishop pair and scaring black's knights away, that's why white has the edge in this position. So in the game, instead of knight a6, our friend NiceChessD just took on c5. I said, okay, knight f3, I'm bringing my pieces out, nothing big. Right now after knight c6, I just play e3, just continue saying, I'm going to prevent knight d4 from trading knights, and I'm going to bring my bishop out one day. And then d5 happens. And here I test our friend NiceChessD. I take on d5. And I would say the best move here is the move knight to b4. Right, saying if I move my queen to b3, you're going to take on d5, and then I'm going to play something like bishop to c4, and it's going to be a normal day, right? So I wanted to test our friend to see if knight b4 was to be played. Now, in this position, I could have also considered the move a3, right? A prophylactic or a preventing move that prevents the move knight b4 from happening. And another move I could have also considered is the move rook to d1, just simply creating some pressure on this file. Bishop to maybe e2 is something to consider as well, but these are all options. So after c takes d5, c takes d5 happened on the board, and I took on f6. And to be honest, I was thinking, I think I have the good position here, right? But I was wrong. It looks harder than I thought. Rook d1, bishop to e6, right? I was thinking, black has an isolated pawn, and all I need to do is really bishop e2, castles, bring my rook out, double up on this guy, and then just go for it, right? That's what I was thinking. So after bishop takes f6, I said, ooh, this might be a shortcut to get to it. If pawn takes f6, I bring my rook to d1, and I go for this d5 pawn. And after queen takes f6, I said, why not take on d5? And to be honest, I thought I was very comfortable here. Queen d6, I was going to play castles queenside. Play e4, play bishop to c4, and I thought I had the advantage here. But what I later saw is black has this move bishop to b4 check, saying if you play your knight back to d2, I'm going to play queen to d6, and I'm going to have the pressure on this d2 knight, right? And if you take, I'm going to take with my knight, and after something like queen to b3, I'm going to play a5, and eventually I'm going to get tempo by playing my bishop to e6, by getting my rook to c8, and really ganging up on this c2 square. So at this point, I have things to worry about, but luckily enough, our friend NiceChessD just goes back to d8, and I'll take that free piece. So that is the end of the game. But what really happened here, right? I would say, well, for number one, knight b4 was probably the move to play, and bishop to b4 was the move to find, but these moves were not easy to find at all. As you can see, I am human, so I'm tired as well. But queen to d8, that gave the bishop away, and that gave the game away, unfortunately. So let's go to our next game against NiceChessD. So this was one of my favorites, the Owen's defense, right? Using the bishops as the diagonals, right? Knight f6, bishop to g5, and after bishop to g5, bishop to e7. So this basically says, I'm going to unpin my my connection, and I'm going to say, if you take, I'll take with the bishop. And if we look back here, I was just looking at the possibility that white may have had e5. So I played bishop e7, knight f3, d5, just to break in the center a little bit because I kind of felt like, white was going to play e5 probably. And I didn't want to put my knight on d5. I wanted to keep it on f6. So I said, I'm going to play d5, and if you play e5, I'll play knight to d7. Now at this moment, I remember instinctively thinking that this was the only square. However, if I look at this position now, knight to e4 actually looks like a much better looking move. If bishop takes e4, I'm going to play pawn takes e4. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight d2, and the good move, e3. With the idea that if pawn takes, I can take on g2, and if pawn takes, I can also maybe play queen to g5. So there are many ways to do it, but after e5, I only thought about this one move, knight back to d7. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight d2, c5, c3, knight c6. So I'm just developing, and I'm sort of turning this setup into a French defense. You can see that I'm using the same technique as the people the French defense do. We play f6, and we try to free ourselves from this dynamite barrier. Pawn takes, queen takes, rook e1, castles, and now I free myself with e5. That is usually a very common goal in the French defense, to go for a central break and try to find that comfort zone. And then I saw d takes c5, and I was unsure of what to do, because I said, this pawn is hanging, right? So if knight takes c5, queen takes d5, king h8, I didn't take time to evaluate this position, because I remember thinking in my mind, I was like, I'm losing a pawn, and I don't think it's great to lose a pawn. But I was obviously wrong, because I didn't judge that I had e4 here. I didn't judge that I had knight to d4 here. These were some shortcomings of my own thought process. So instead, I played the move knight d7, protect the pawns. Pawn takes b6, and now the in-between move e4, saying, if you move your knight, I'm going to take on f2. I have my rook behind it, and I'll finally take back. So after rook f1, I briefly considered taking on f1 and trading. And I didn't know if that was good or bad, but eventually I said I kind of felt like I had something going on the king side. I feel like I had to add something, maybe bringing the knight over, right? Maybe bringing the knight to c4 and e3. But regardless, I thought I had something in the position that there was a need for my queen to be alive. So after knight to e6, I was feeling a little bit unpleasant at the same time because the knight was a bit annoying. So I played rook to f6. I wanted to scare the knight away. And you play knight 2 to d4, just supporting this guy. Very great move from NiceChessD. I played bishop to c8. I want to gang up on this knight. I want it to leave. Rook takes, queen takes, knight to c7, rook to b8. So, as you can tell, my rook has like no squares. But I could play knight to c4 and go for the b2 pawn, but at the same time, I need to somehow get rid of this knight very soon. So after queen h5, I was in time pressure for another game, but I immediately saw queen to e8 is coming, so I sort of said, why not play bishop d7, right? But then I had some second thoughts about some other move. So then I said, to make things simple, I just need to shoo away the queen. So g6, queen e2, queen e5, going for the knight again. Knight to b5, bishop to a6. I'm now playing a very critical role in trying to pin the piece. Now, I also thought about the moves a3, obviously. I mean, not a3, a6. I also thought about the bishop d7, and after knight takes a7, knight to c4, right? Because the knight has nowhere to go. And then, if we look at a6 again, and knight to a3, I was thinking, okay, I don't have the c4 square, but maybe I can relocate my guy to f6 and bring my bishop to g4, right? So that was another thing to consider. But I didn't know. I didn't know at the time, so I said, let's get my bishop to work. Let's put it on a very good looking diagonal, rook f1, and now knight to d7. So now I'm relocating my knight, and here's the moment where NiceChessD lost the game. And this was just accidental, I sort of felt like at the same time, NiceChessD kind of felt there was something going on the F file. It just wasn't strong enough, because I was able to gobble the pawns, and at this point, I have no threat to me. I can play rook to f8 next move and challenge that hanging rook, and so there are many ways to think about it. Bishop takes, knight takes, and rook to f5, bring my queen to e1, bishop takes f1, and that king is looking extremely guilty. So what went wrong in this game, right? So the opening was all okay. I could have played the move knight to e4, right? So despite that, I had a decent opening, right? I was able to execute the French defense pawn break, put out e5, and at this moment, what I should have done is I should have just taken on c5, or I should have just played king h8. I should have ignored the fact that this pawn was going to be a problem, because to be honest, it's not a big problem losing that pawn, because that way I could open up my bishop and that would be good for me as well. But playing this continuation was also okay. I mean, maybe after rook f1, I maybe should have played queen takes, because the knights coming to d4 and to c7 were a bit annoying, but I was able to deal with them okay. So g6, I could have also played bishop d7, queen e5, and I felt like the main thing that allowed me to win this game was the pressure, right? I was constantly putting pressure. I was putting pressure on f2. I had a very good centralized structure, and I was able to really take advantage of the weird placement of white's pieces. Even though I didn't find the best moves, it was a game. So I'll see you next time.